If you would do me the honor,
Oh, God.
will you please marry me?
These are the moments that
I asked you to hold off and wait so she could prove herself. And then you just go walk up and pull this little sneak.
If you would do me the honor, will you marry me? Sheena doesn't hesitate. Her breath catches. Her hands tremble. Tears spill before she can stop them. And then she says yes. On that flower-lined bridge inside the Venice-style mall, it looks like a fairy tale finally catching up to a 7-year love story. Forrest drops to one knee. She gasps. A ring he's secretly held onto for 6 years slides onto her finger like it's been waiting for this exact second. They cling to each other like two people who have survived distance, doubt, and time. It feels earned. And then, less than an hour later, it's called a sneak. Not romantic, not spontaneous, not even premature. A sneak. And that single word changes everything. The energy shift is immediate. They return to the apartment complex glowing, still riding the adrenaline of the proposal. Molly and Dev are sitting poolside, relaxed, unaware. Forrest, the man who confidently knelt in public moments ago, suddenly looks like a teenager about to admit he wrecked the car. He can barely say the word propose. The second Molly hears it, her expression hardens. This isn't confusion, it's not gentle concern, it's anger. She reminds him she told him to wait, to slow down, to let Sheena prove herself first. Prove what? For how long? This isn't a mild disagreement, it feels territorial. Because when a grown man looks more nervous announcing his engagement to his mother than kneeling with a ring, you're not watching a normal family reaction. You're watching a power structure crack. Sheena is glowing. Forrest is smiling, but rigid. Molly looks blindsided and offended. Dev barely reacts. And just like that, the love story becomes a referendum. Why did Molly react like she'd been betrayed? Was it about Sheena's earlier admission of dishonesty? Or was it about losing influence over her son? Why does Forrest sound steady and intentional when he's alone with Sheena, but shrink the second his mother enters the room? And what truth is still sitting beneath this engagement, quietly waiting to surface? Because earlier that same day, Forrest didn't just plan romance. He planned privacy. He took Sheena out not just for a date, but to escape supervision. He literally says he can finally talk without his mom behind him. That detail shifts the temperature of everything. Alone with Sheena, Forrest is composed, focused, clear. He talks about honesty, about needing her to stop lying, about working as a team. He doesn't yell, he doesn't accuse, he's calm. Back at the pool? He can't hold eye contact. The contrast is sharp. And Molly doesn't just question timing. She questions the decision itself. She frames the proposal like it was done behind her back, like she was excluded from something she had a right to manage. That word hangs in the air, manage. She reminds him she came to advise him, to help him, as if his engagement required supervision. Forrest pushes back, carefully. He says she's being stubborn. He defends his happiness. It's measured, controlled. Sheena, surprisingly, doesn't shrink. She doesn't cry. She doesn't apologize. She nods. She agrees they're adults. And that's when Molly escalates. Because this moment isn't about approval. It's about authority shifting. 7 years together. A ring bought 6 years ago. A proposal on foreign soil without maternal sign-off. That's not just romance crossing a milestone. That's a boundary being drawn. Someone just lost leverage. But here's the uncomfortable layer. Sheena did admit earlier that she wasn't fully honest. Not about cheating, not about betrayal, but about things she kept hidden. And there's still a financial detail hovering quietly, never fully addressed. So when Molly says Sheena needed to prove herself, is she reacting to something concrete or reacting to fear? Because fear doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it roars. Forrest stands between two women who both claim they're protecting something. Molly says she's protecting her son. Sheena says she's protecting her relationship. Forrest says he's protecting their love. But protection can easily morph into control. And right now, nobody's arguing about the core issue. They're arguing about permission. Let's go back to the mall. Not the explosion. The fantasy. Forrest and Sheena walk through Venice Mall like they've hit reset. No commentary, no hovering presence, just breathing space. And the first thing Forrest says isn't romantic. He says they need to talk about lying. That's the foundation. He tells her he needs transparency. She says she hated lying. She promises change. It sounds mature. It sounds resolved. But listen carefully. She apologizes emotionally. What she doesn't provide is concrete clarity, especially about money. The financial issue lingers quietly. Forrest doesn't press. He accepts the apology, accepts the tone, accepts the vulnerability. Then the mood shifts. They step into a costume shop. She slips into a red dress. He puts on armor like a knight stepping into a fantasy. They laugh, they pose, they flirt. Minutes ago, they were discussing broken trust. Now they're playing hero and damsel. That shift matters. Forrest says something revealing. He talks about coming to the Philippines originally wanting to save her. Now he says he wants to protect her, provide for her, save, protect, provide. Powerful words, but protect her from what? Her past? Her family? Her own decisions? Or his mother's doubts? There's a thin line between partnership and rescue fantasy. Then Sheena opens up about her ex, about being cheated on, about feeling replaced, about believing maybe she pushed him away. Her voice cracks, her confidence dips. She says she's terrified of ever doing something that would make Forrest leave too. That's the emotional pivot. Forrest softens instantly. His posture shifts. He reassures her, tells her they can survive anything as long as they're honest. It feels intimate. But something subtle just happened. The focus moved from unresolved dishonesty to her vulnerability. When someone cries about abandonment, logic steps back. Compassion steps forward. The conversation stops being about policy. It becomes about protection. Minutes later, gondola ride. Minutes later, flower bridge. Minutes later, he's on one knee. That speed matters. If trust was shaken, why is the solution a proposal that same day? Maybe he's certain. He did buy the ring 6 years ago. Or maybe that ring was waiting for the right emotional moment, not the right logical one. It depends how you frame it. Then comes the pool, and Molly's face erases the fairy tale glow. She doesn't look surprised. She looks furious. Does she know something specific we haven't seen fully unpacked? Or is she reacting to speed? She told him to wait. He didn't wait. He accelerated. Now we're left with layers. Will Forrest stand firm when adrenaline fades? Is Sheena fully transparent now, or just relieved the deeper questions paused? Is Molly acting from evidence, instinct, or fear? Because the engagement didn't create the fracture. It exposed it. Step back and watch the rhythm. When Molly isn't present, Forrest sounds certain. He plans. He decides. He proposes confidently. When she enters, he explains instead of declares. That contrast isn't subtle. Molly frames her involvement as guidance. But the impact feels like control. Intent and impact don't match. Forrest demands honesty, but doesn't push for specifics. His backbone appears selectively. He confronts his mother firmly. He softened with Sheena emotionally. That imbalance isn't villainous, it's human. And now we reach the core truth. Nothing about this proposal fixed the underlying tension. It raised the stakes. Before the ring, unresolved trust was a dating issue. After the ring, it becomes a marriage issue. If financial transparency isn't complete, that won't disappear. It will compound. If Forrest smooths over difficult conversations to preserve romance, resentment won't vanish. It will accumulate. If Molly continues inserting herself with intensity instead of curiosity, Forrest will eventually choose a direction. Rebel harder, or retreat emotionally. None of those paths are clean. Half conversations create full consequences. So what actually triggered the explosion? Not the ring. the shift in control. For years, Molly had influence in how this relationship unfolded. Whether intentional or not, her approval mattered. When Forrest proposed without looping her in, that influence shrank overnight. That's the spark. And transitions aren't graceful. A son stepping into partnership, a girlfriend stepping into fiancé status, a mother adjusting to the outside of the decision loop. Nobody here is cartoonishly evil. They're reacting to fear. But fear mixed with love becomes leverage. And leverage creates tension. The real test isn't about romance. It's about money. Autonomy. Boundaries. If you need physical distance from someone to feel confident making your own decision, your independence isn't fully built yet. Forrest was strongest when Molly wasn't present. That's telling. A proposal magnifies cracks. It doesn't seal them. The ring changed the label. It didn't eliminate the fault lines. And when the flowers fade and the music stops, the next conversation won't happen on a bridge. It will happen over expectations, accountability, and independence. That's where engagements either stabilize into partnership or expose the fractures that were there all along.